Hi, I'm Dean Sage.
And I'm Jack Curvin.
And this is Show Me Your Deck,
a podcast where we explore the intersections of oracles and chakras,
using our original decks to create new insights. Episode 39.
39.
I think it's funny how most podcasts don't title their episodes till after it's done. So like when you start the recording, you know what episode number it is, but you have no idea what the title is going to be. And that's especially true for us because we have literally no idea what's about to happen.
No, we don't. No, we can't title it until after it's all done.
Like we
can number it, but
yeah, we use dice for you and intuition for me. So we don't know what's going to come out. So,
no, and sometimes it's a lot of fun. Sometimes it's kind of confusing, but we make sense of it somehow.
We get there. Sometimes we have to kind of roll it around a little bit in our minds, get our senses about us. Sometimes the same cards keep coming up, even though you're rolling dice.
You know, I said during a recent episode that 49 it never comes up, and I was like editing some of them. I was like, no, actually 49 comes up too. It's come up like 3 or 4 times. It's like, why does it always feel so special?
I don't feel like we've had like 22. Trying to think of other numbers. I don't think we've had. I don't recall one. I don't think we've ever rolled one.
Have we not?
I don't think so.
We've rolled 7 a lot.
Yes.
The bridge between root and crown, and the inverse of that one. We've done that one several times
Those
too.
ones, yeah. Maybe does that speak to us? Is there something with us that we need to fix?
They're saying, get your shit together.
or is it recognizing that we're aligning our chakras every Saturday morning?
Well, either way, they have a lot to say with some frequency.
When you're done the episode, do you ever feel like better? Does it feel like you kind of grown or changed or?
Yeah, because what it reinforces for me is that the reminder nature of my deck feels better than if it were trying to predict a future of some kind. I find that this is more conversational to look at what the cards are reminding us to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really feel like you can predict. I think you can clarify. I think you can clarify where you are, and I think lots of humans have intuition about what is probably happening, right? Like you can kind of clarify, so you can see a little bit into the future. Like if you clarify the circumstances of where you are and what's happening, you can see a little bit into what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I've had to defend my deck, plural decks, on a couple of occasions against people who are against divination practices. Like, this is not divination. They're like, oh, I was like, this is not divination. This is conversation. They're like, oh, I was like, And they're like, and I'm like,
I have slight follow up. I don't remember if it was in the premium segment or not, but I talked about how I hadn't done like tarot readings in a little bit. Like, I remember you saying that about a year or even a little bit more. So I did one the other day, and I did one for creativity. I think you suggested that. So I did it, and I kind of got the message that I knew I needed to hear because it was stuff that you had said. So like the cards reinforced it, and they're like, you just kind of let go of things, get in the flow, like just put stuff in there, just do it. So
yeah, well, getting into the flow can be the flow.
Yes, then that's the hardest part for me, is getting into the flow. So let's get into the flow here with some dice action.
All right, so we're going to start with deck number 4, the haiku. We're going to go with, let me go ahead and grab that deck. The perceptions of joy. So which number?
Which number? She's looking at it funny.
It's kind of cattywampus. Oh, I see. Okay, that's 32.
32.
Okay. So relatively high up. Let's see, 32.
Is that like the throat, maybe?
It is. It is the throat. And this is... Hold on, let me get my stuff out of the way here. All right, so this is throat. I say aqua. As it is influenced by the root chakra, red. I am. Innuendos waft, rippling sand, mutating dunes, relentless whispers. Innuendos waft, rippling sand, mutating dunes, relentless whispers.
Okay, you said waft. Is that waft?
Mm-hmm.
Same word? Am I just pronouncing it differently?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Like the wafting of
wafting.
Candle smoke and okay. So okay, all right. Just want to make sure. I want to make sure because I'm like, is there another word I don't know that you use in your haiku?
No, it's the wafting.
Okay.
Innuendos. Right. Waft. Wait, which do you prefer?
I say waft. I don't know. I don't know if that's right or wrong.
Waft. Rippling sand, mutating dunes, relentless whispers.
Yeah, I watched a lot of British stuff as a kid because my grandmother was in love with British comedy, so we would watch like Are You Being Served?
Oh yeah,
Mrs. Slocum and her pussy.
Yes, stroke my pussy.
Can you open the letterbox and look through and see if you can see my pussy?
And then there's the gay guy that was always trying to help people with their handkerchiefs or whatever.
Well, measuring the inseam.
Measuring the inseam.
That was a big joke. Right. Yeah, Mr. Humphreys. That's a great show.
Faulty Towers,
Faulty Towers is good. Yeah.
And what was the one? Mrs. Bouquet, the Bouquet residence, lady of the house speaking, but her actual name was Bucket. What was that one?
I don't know.
Keeping Up Appearances.
I didn't watch that one.
Yes, well, Mrs. Bucket, first be known as Mrs. Bouquet.
Well, here and they're perfect. So that's waft and waft right there.
Okay.
Maybe in the South it's waft, and maybe because I was born in California. There, like we have an accent, but we don't like quite inherit it from the East Coast, like South North kind of thing, where there's a lot of distinction.
Right.
We kind of have like a little bit of a different because we really were a mixing of everything together.
It's so funny how all this stuff comes together into a conversation. But like many years ago, I heard a language joke in Boston, of all places. They're looking at accents, and this guy on the whatever their subway is called, whatever that thing is, it's really cute.
The T, I think it is.
The T. Okay, so we're on the T, and this guy, he's full Boston accent. He's talking to somebody next to him about whatever they're talking about. I said, yeah, and I said to this guy, I said, you say tomato, I say fuck you. It's like, why can this not happen to me with more frequency? I was like, this is exactly what I love about language.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's totally awesome. All right, but let's get to the imagery. So wafting, we've got air moving, sort of a bucket of scents, a bouquet.
No, that's Miss Bucket. She's not here. She's not here. We have the innuendos, wafting or wafting, rippling sand, mutating dunes, relentless whispers.
All right, so I like the imagery of like the slow movement here, like the very slow movement, and I assume that's because we're linking with the root, which is like earth.
Yeah.
So, wind and earth makes very small changes, but, whittles and wears down mountains. I mean, look at the Appalachians.
Yep. Well, the earth image here specifically is sand dunes.
Okay.
And how those mutate and change in the wind.
Now, I'm curious about the relentless whispers part. That's interesting to me because that breaks the metaphor just a little bit. And takes us in a different direction, which of course, is very haiku. But what are you kind of feeling is the relentless whispering here? Is it like whisperings of confidence? Is it whisperings of no?
This is the way in which your words tear people down and change who they are at their core and reform them completely, and being careful about how rumor and innuendo, it says innuendos waft. So innuendos are spoken words, and how they float around, and looking at the ways in which it reforms earth itself, and being careful about how you use your words, understanding that when people say sticks and stones and all that bullshit about words, it's not true. Words are extraordinarily powerful, and if you're not using them carefully, you can be undoing or reshaping people's identity, and you have to be careful about that. Just be careful and aware of how you're using your words. Yeah. Okay, so our context here is maybe a thoughtful place. Maybe you are in either a position, right? Because like power obviously makes words have more impact. Maybe you're in a closeness of a relationship. You have some kind of authority.
Yeah, you have something that makes your words maybe more powerful to someone.
Whether you're in a position as a manager or an employer, or you're popular at high school, or you've got 10 million followers on your cooking channel on Instagram.
Parent and child too.
Parent and child, especially parent and child, friend on friend. There's all these different interactions where somebody will put more value and weight and consequence into what you say.
Mm-hmm. So there's a caution here to be aware of it. So just take stock, as you're listening to this, take stock of where you are and what positions of power you have that might
use your powers for good.
Because sometimes reshaping is good, right? Sometimes reshaping is positive. Sometimes people need to be kind of broken down a little bit and remade, especially when something's gone very wrong.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But it's a slow process, right? We're not going to just break someone to break someone. We want to slowly bring them to a different realization. And this is why I like core imagery and core metaphors, because they do a good job of doing it quickly enough that you can make sort of immediate change, but not so damagingly quickly, like not just sort of breaking it into pieces and leaving it, but saying, let's, like sand, reshape this.
Yeah. And sand polishes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sandblasters, but again, that's kind of extreme. But
yes,
that's exactly the opposite of what you were just describing. But being cognizant of the way in which we express ourselves and how it changes the way people understand themselves.
Okay, let's get a card from my deck here. Let's see who wants to talk to us. Okay, got one here. All right, we are number 3 in the major arcana. This is the Creator, also known as the Empress in the Tarot. What you imagine, you can shape. What you imagine, you can shape.
Okay. It's very aspirational.
So the major arcana, for me, this is the 6th chakra, surprise, or the 5th chakra, surprise.
No expression.
Yeah, this is the throat. These are the archetypes. So as the celestial goes on their journey and they've sort of mastered the first 4 chakras, they come into dealing with others, right? So the first 4 chakras are really about aligning yourself and keeping yourself in order. And then the 5th chakra is where you start to interact with others. And so they meet the 7 archetypes in this cycle. And number 3 is the Creator. So the magician or the primal creates all the elements. So it's sort of like the creation of the universe. Mm-hmm. And then the high priestess or the oracle sort of is the intuition of what to do with all of this newness, with all of this creation. And then you get to number 3, which is the Creator or the Empress, and they actually mold the elements. So this person isn't creating the universe, they're kind of taking the universe where they are and molding it from there. So this is what you can imagine you can shape. So the elements are already there. What you need is already there. It's just up to you to kind of shape them into what they will become.
So I'm sorry, the first one creates the raw materials. The second one does what?
It's intuition, understanding.
Looking at it, trying to figure out what to do with it. And the third one is actually taking action and making something.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the 4th one, the next step would be to set down the rules of of how things interact. So this is really about the creation of things. You don't have to know exactly what they're going to do. Like you don't have to set up physics. You're just sort of setting up atoms right now, and then physics can kind of come next. The pathways that things will follow.
Okay. All right. And so within the context of the first card, make sure that what you're making isn't going to hurt people.
Well, I think we are getting into like the shaping of the dunes. I think that's the image that I'm pulling out from the haiku, because here we are shaping, like it's literally saying to shape things. So I think it is, it's saying first, be conscious of how you can affect others, right? Be conscious of how your voice, how your words, make effects, create effects. But then I think this card is telling us you need to do that, right? That's actually the task at hand, is to go about something that is shaping. And for some reason, I just keep going to parent and child right now. That's just where my head's at. I kind of imagine what are you saying to your child to build them and shape them and mold them? A
child is raw material in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, you can turn that child into just about anything. I mean, obviously the baby will have its own personality traits and everything, but you can set somebody young on a course that's very difficult to correct later.
I just had this flash of maybe we're speaking to our inner child.
We can actually be quite literal. Yesterday, when I was coming back from the grocery store, there were two people walking with a child between them. Each one was holding the child's hand, and they were going up the ramp on a sidewalk. And by happenstance, they both let go of the child's hand at the same time, and the child immediately collapsed.
Oh.
Now, instead of picking the child up, they started pointing at each other and arguing about whose fault it was. And I'm driving by and I was like, shouldn't your first priority be to pick the child back up? I mean, I'm not a parent, but it seems to me like it doesn't matter whose fault it is when the toddler has toddled.
Yes.
So, just being aware of the choices you make, and then they're arguing with each other. So this is an air moment here. They are expressing around this little sand dune, reshaping it as it's collapsing before them. It's like, wow, that's really perfect. Except it's awful.
So, I mean, maybe this is literal for you. Maybe this is figurative. I'm sort of, latching on to the parent-child and maybe the inner child. I did talk about root metaphors, a second ago before we pulled this card. And of course, that's, one of the effective ways to deal with childhood trauma and to deal with reshaping core pieces of your personality, is metaphor work.
Yeah.
Because you've got an understanding, you've got a metaphor, a picture, a story that you've told yourself about yourself, and you need to change that story. So I'm thinking of Cabaret, maybe next time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be lucky. She's told herself this story that she's unlucky, that nobody was going to love her.
Maybe next time. That one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe next time he'll stay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of pulled to that song for a second. It just flashes in my mind because that's an entire story that she's told herself. And the more she tells it, the more it comes true. But there's this hopeful sense in it as well. So it's this huge contradiction between, well, you keep telling yourself a bad story and the bad story keeps coming true, but you're hopeful that by telling yourself the bad story, it'll change. And there's your problem, right? Because you're not actually changing anything. So we talk about shaping things. You're not actually shaping anything differently.
It's interesting because the story that I'm working on is looking to make changes with words and reform, the way people understand some of the stuff that I'm talking about in the book. And, sometimes I use a sledgehammer and sometimes I don't.
Mm.
Sometimes I use a sandblaster and sometimes I don't.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of curious what I said in the book about this card, because in the book, there is a moment where I talk about you. I think it was with the authority, the next card in the sequence. You don't explain to a child why running into the street is dangerous. You snatch them away from the street, right? So sometimes you have to take direct action for the goodness of the person. So this is what I said in the book. If you could take money from a tree or snap your fingers and eliminate pain and suffering, you would already have done it. The creator is not a god, and neither are you. If you believe you can speak things into existence, then you lead a very privileged life and owe something back to those who support it. Shaping what you imagine is not about money, fame, or things. It is about using your inner power, your intention, to shape the life you live. There are thousands of things that happen around you every day, and you do not create them. What you do create is yourself over and again each day. What are you letting sit in your mental shelf untouched because you don't believe you can? Shape what you imagine for yourself and see how your power spreads to others. Your actions are your voice to the void.
It's very good. It's nice when you read from your book.
Oh, thank you. It took me a minute to make. I sometimes forget that I made it. Remember, we've talked before how I'm like, I haven't been creative in years. And
like, what are you talking about?
I wrote a book. I wrote a whole book. You can get it on Amazon. I wrote a whole book. Yeah. So I think there's definitely like an inward part of this reminder. I think you know what? I think it can be true of both. I think, listening to what you tell others, sometimes you need to tell yourself.
Sure.
Careful of the words and the powers, because oftentimes, like, I'll just give, for instance, I ran into a couple of very overweight people in the last week, and in my head, no matter how much I try not to be, I'm extremely judgmental of it, and it's because I'm judgmental of myself. And there's this comparison. Well, at least I'm not that, right? At least I'm not that. And this guy was talking, and he got those little white things in the corner of his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad, that happened to my dad a lot, and it drove me crazy. I'm like, get rid of him. So I was literally like squirming during a presentation because he had these little white things and I couldn't focus on anything else.
Yeah. And
it's because I bring all of this baggage, all of this story, behind me to this situation, to this thing. And so, there's this like wanting to lash out with your voice to, attack that which you find devastating or horrible about what's going on with you.
Are you seeing a potential future for yourself in that person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Cause my dad and I are different. He's a little shorter and he got up to more weight than I have, but I'm getting close. Like I'm not too far off from where he was at one point. He did the bariatric surgery and he got better, but he's come back up a little bit in the past. But like, I always lived with a fat dad. Like and people treated him differently because he was fat. And so that just sort of like ingrained, in my metaphor, in my story, in my core imagery, a very judgmental place. And then as I started to gain weight and become a fat person, it affected how I become even more judgmental of others, but also deep fear, there's deep fear and loathing in that image because I don't want to get there. And I need to steer away from that, and find a way through that. So I think that there's sort of an examination here of yourself, what you're saying to others, but how it's stemming from what is going on inside of you, what's shaped inside of you, and the words that you give to others also shape you. So there's not only be aware of your effect that you're having on others, but how do those same words have an effect on you? So there's like an echo.
Yeah, understanding when you're actually attacking yourself. And that happens. I've seen women do it to each other. I've seen Black people do it to each other. I've seen gay people do it to each other. So whatever it is that you're recovering from in your own trauma, you see it outside and then attack it because you don't want it in you, but now you've just reinforced whatever's happening with them.
So I think this reminder is kind of taking on a duality, which is fine, because some of you are going to take this and hear it and say, "Oh my gosh, this is me. This is going on inside of me. I'm having these conversations. I'm having these shaping moments." And some people are going to recognize it and say, "Oh, this is outside of me. This is happening." I think this is just a call to realize that what's happening outside of you is happening inside of you. What's happening inside of you is going to happen outside of you. Like there's an interplay between those two. They always kind of echo each other back and forth.
Well, what's happening inside of you kind of creates the glasses you're wearing and the lenses you're seeing the world through anyway. That is your experience.
Yeah.
These experiences are exactly how and why you have the perspective that you do. So you can reverse engineer perhaps what's going on. It's like, okay, well, why does this seem offensive to me? Why do I feel the need to do this to someone when I have these same traits? Why this? Why this? You can reverse engineer and go back through your perspective, back in through your eyes and look inside yourself for a moment and see what you might address so you don't feel the need to lash out in that way.
And going to the kind of parent-child metaphor that we've touched on a few times, this happens a lot in parenting, I think, is that the child starts to do something that you feel shame about and you can lash out, or the child reminds you of things that you were shamed for and you lash out.
No. Okay.
There's the repetitive cycle of trauma, the generational trauma that can enforce things. And there's the idea of, well, this is how I was raised and this is how I'm going to raise my child. But it really is incumbent upon everyone to think about, was that right? Was that good? Did that actually make you a better person, or did it just make you a person that has trauma now and is living out that trauma in their everyday life without examining it, without being curious about it?
Yeah. It's an interesting reading because it's reminding us to be careful about something we do all the time, which is communicate.
Mm-hmm. Every communication is laden with meaning and with emotion, with story, with metaphor. Like it's all coming together. Even simple communications are playing out all those dynamics.
Yeah. And you can fit a lot of meaning into a very little bit of speech. Mm-hmm. They're very good at that here in the South.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We're very, very good at that in the South. I mean, everybody knows about, well, bless your heart. That one's like a cliche, but we have others. Mm-hmm. We have others. There was a trip I took to Charleston, South Carolina with a friend. Beautiful girl. She's a lovely woman. And it was a very beautiful spring day, and she was wearing a sundress. It's just a sundress, like any woman wears. And we were walking down the street through the historic district where the old money lives. And she saw us from across the street. Here she comes. One of these old money dames with the tight perm and everything. Just as soon as I looked at her, I was like, oh, Jesus, here she comes. She saw my friend, and she crossed the street to come and talk to us. And I was like, and my friend didn't see her coming. I was like, I probably should have warned her. And she came up to my friend. She's like, well, hello. And I was like, what is this going to be? My friend's like, oh, hi, how are you? And this woman out of nowhere said, well, that sure is a pretty little dress you have on. And my friend's like, well, thank you. And she's like, you have a nice day. She turned around and walked away. And I was like, girl, she just called you a whore. She's like, what are you talking about? It's like, she said, what a pretty little dress you have on. She could have said, that shows a pretty dress you have on. She didn't. She said, that shows a pretty little dress you have on. She's saying you look like a slut. And she came across the street to do that.
You wonder what drives people to these things.
I don't even get it. I don't know why we have to be so good at it in the South.
I mean, there was a genteel sort of thing. The landed gentry came over in the South. That's where it stayed.
Yep.
You spoke more like the British of the time than the North did. The North became a much more,
it's more industrialized.
Piecemeal, yeah.
Well, y'all also had like city or town hall meetings, and you were set up for commerce, and your entire culture is different from ours. We were agrarian people.
I mean, cities sprung up in the North much faster. They grew bigger, melting pots. There was so much kind of being thrown together. Mm-hmm. There was, I mean, like in Philadelphia, there's the main line. Like there is the rich people's area, but it was different. They weren't really landed. They just had houses. They just had
real estate, but money. Not land.
Yes. And so yeah, you have sort of a genteelness in the landed gentry, and you don't accuse people of being whores. You just tell them to their face,
hey, you look like a slut.
Yes.
Have a good day.
Well, and that's the funny part, because in New York, they would have just been like, that's a slutty dress you're wearing. And
I like it.
Well, that's true. That's true. It would have been a compliment in New York. They would have felt that was I can't talk. I was just going to say Central Park. Just go to Central Park in the summer, and slutty little shorts is what you've got on most of the time.
There's a hill in San Francisco where the gay guys go. I don't remember what it's called, Nob Hill or something. I don't know. I'm in Beacon Hill. I don't remember. Well, you can see a lot.
We're not even talking about Folsom.
Oh, yeah. Well, that sure is a pretty little dress you have on.
Sure is a pretty little dress you have off.
Yeah. So,
all right. So we have this sort of setting here. We have a reminder. We're kind of dealing with internal, external, the voice. And in my book, I said the voice into the void. Sometimes you're talking to the abyss and it just happens to be another person, but you're screaming madly into the abyss. And
sometimes the abyss speaks to you.
Yes. It crosses the street.
It crosses the street and comes tells you what a pretty little dress you have on.
I'm just imagining the void being sassy now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get some more. Let's do another roll. Yeah, let's do another roll.
All right. Deck number. Oh, we're staying with the haiku. All right. And I'll go get that deck back out. And we have card number 17.
17.
I think it'll be in Manipura.
Yeah, it should be in the third.
Yep, here it is. Oh, but we're still, this is nice. So this is fire, Manipura, I do, yellow, and how it is influenced by throat, aqua, I say.
Wait, before you read it, I forgot to mention that is the exact intersection of the creator. It's throat.
Well, we've got a lot going on today with actions and words.
Chakra. Yeah.
Actions and words all over the place. Okay, so this is how I do is affected by I say, how the choices you make are affected by the way you communicate. All right. Incinerate lies, ignite impotent breezes, haul ideals aloft. Incinerate lies, ignite impotent breezes, haul ideals aloft.
Okay. I like the incinerate lies part. That's good. That feels very timely. Why impotent ideas? What's the thing there?
Impotent breezes.
Oh, sorry, impotent breezes.
So if you're thinking about breezes as a metaphor for talking, then if you're just talking to talk, then you're not really doing anything with what you're saying. So ignite them. Put some fire under that. And whatever you're talking about in terms of your ideals will haul them aloft. So the image here is a hot air balloon.
I was just going to say, I just got the picture of a hot air balloon, so that's good.
So the idea that all these words and air that you're blowing out into the wind, and, what are you doing with any of it? What are you doing with your ideas? What are you doing with your ideals? You can't just talk. You got to do.
Well, it's also a good reminder that you talk from your ideals, even if you haven't lit the fire behind them. What you view and think and feel influences what you say and do.
Well, air fuels fire. Mm-hmm. So to your point, if you're speaking from your ideals, that should be the fuel that ignites the fire that gets you to make choices and take actions. They should be fueled by your ideals. Mm-hmm. So haul those ideals aloft.
Okay. Raise them up. Bring them with you.
Mm-hmm. Let them take you somewhere.
I like the hot air balloon too because there's limited space. So I think you have to have the most refined version of your ideas. You can't just bring giant stones up. You have to bring the gems that come, become those stones become.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just take anything. It's not a wide body jet where you can throw the shuttlecraft on top, and haul it around the country.
No. And there's another one kind of similar where it's, it might even be the next card now that I think about it, where it's the intersection of fire and water. So doing something with your ideas, otherwise they just sit in your head. So in this fire cycle, there are a lot of reminders that you have to actually act upon what you're considering, act upon who you think you are, act on what you talk about, act on what you think about. It doesn't matter until you do something.
You have to do. So and to
quote Britney Spears, you've got to do something, right? Isn't it Britney that did that? You have to ask your spouse.
I don't know. I know she did work, bitch.
Well, same.
You better work.
If you want a Maserati,
yeah. If you want a
hot body,
yeah. You better work, bitch.
You better work, bitch. So, the the fire sequence in my system is hopefully motivational, but also a reminder that the choices you make, the actions you take, the products you produce, they come from you. So make sure that what's coming out of you is worth doing, and that you do what's worth doing. It's cyclical. It feeds back into itself. It's a loop that just magnifies itself over and over and over. It's like, this is worth doing, so I'm going to do it. That was worth doing, so I'm going to do it again. And I mean, hopefully you don't burn out. But I meet a lot of people who talk a lot and think a lot and dream a lot, but don't necessarily do anything. And I think we were talking about earlier, feeling revulsion towards what we see in other people and ourselves. And I think one of the reasons I get impatient with this in other people is because I'm afraid that I myself will procrastinate and not take action on my ideas. And so I get very uncomfortable when I see people in the men's group talking about the same ideas for 3 and 4 years in a row without ever actually doing anything. I find that beyond exasperating. That's not just exasperating to me. That's actually hitting my core metaphor. So, I made this deck, so it's going to be tinted by my lens. And you just have to be aware of that. So, yeah, I guess we're addressing one of my core metaphors in this card.
Well, and I just have to point out, like, we've been throat. Like we've had 3 throats in a row. This reading is very focused. It's absolutely pushing us onto examining what we say, right? How our air travels, how it moves about. I'll say this is actually the part of my deck where I sort of lose the elemental connection. So I don't really have an elemental connection for the top 3 chakras, because the standard chakral balance doesn't really have the same kind of elemental thing that you have. But we are talking about the same chakra, like we are talking about the same idea, and we've had it 1, 2, 3. So it's like we're very much focused on that. But we've also had
1,000.
What?
We're batting 1,000.
Yes. Well, we also have the added chakral elements here. So we had the root. We've had fire twice, right? We've had the 3rd chakra twice now. So there's a lot of action. There's a lot of air. There's a lot of talk, right? Words. And this focus on them. So you have things that you're carrying, right? So we haven't had the 2nd chakra, so we haven't really talked about emotions, but they're there. Like even when they don't come up in the cards, right? They still exist within you. You still have other chakras, even if we don't pull a card about them in the reading. They're still a part of you. And so I think there's sort of this unspoken weight, especially when you talk about hauling things aloft. You need a lot of hot air, right? You need a lot to fill that balloon and pull it upwards. What's interesting to me about balloons too is that you can't really direct them. So you have to kind of be aware of where you are and where the wind is and where you launch and where you might recover. And you have to be very careful when you do go aloft, because you start to lose control of things. The other air, right? Other winds begin to affect you. So as you bring these ideas up, you need to expect the interplay of others. And I think this speaks to creativity. It speaks to, raising a child. It speaks to being in a position of authority. Once your air sort of goes out there, more comes back, and it can affect you. And the same thing that happens when you put something into the world can come back to you and affect and shape you. So there's that constant interplay. It's not like an echo chamber, but it's that constant interplay of words and ideas and thoughts and feelings pouring out through our voice and coming back through the voice of others.
It's interesting that as you were saying that, the first place I went when you're talking about drifting and lack of control. I was like, you could change it into a Zeppelin. It's a blimp. You can direct it.
Yes.
But to your point, yeah, you do need to be aware of how this is a conversation. You have your internal air filling up the action and lifting you up, but then you're up in the air, you're up in the sky, surrounded on all sides by other conversations. So it's a good point.
So I think we have to kind of take this as a real chance to think about what you say and the reasons for it. So they shape things, right? You create things. You motivate, demotivate, stress out, unstress, right? We have effects. Our voice has effects. It's the only way that we can really communicate with each other as language. Now, I mean, obviously with sign language, there's some languages that are not spoken, but
there's still expression.
For the vast majority of humanity, speaking is the way in which we convey things, and we only have words to mediate our experience with the experience of others and for them to mediate their experience to us. That's all there is these sort of spoken words. I mean, look what we've done with AI. Like we created a chatbot. You know, we want something that'll talk to us. It's the most human thing we can think of. You know, we imitate our cats and our dogs because we want verbal communication with them. We want to have that interchange of things, and we try to learn their vocalizations, and then we try to imitate their vocalizations. And you know, the babies babble because they're trying to imitate what they're hearing. This is as much as it's a higher chakra, right? It's not like a core root chakra. The fifth chakra is very important to us as we are intelligent thinking beings. And yes, and the funny part is that the animals are doing the same thing. Like their vocalizations are trying to communicate with us. And cats are a good example of where they have an entire language just for us.
They don't use it with each other.
They don't use it with each other. It's just for humans. And it imitates the frequency of babies crying.
Yep, so we'll feed them. Because it's a frequency that's so annoying. It's like, just put something in his mouth. Make it stop.
But yeah, there's this very core essential piece to us as humans that really does function on the idea of voice. And so I think we're being called to really listen to ourselves and to others and to carefully think about what we're doing. And I think this is true of the written word as well. You know, what you write down. And to your point, like what you know, how do you express your creativity, right? How do you hold them aloft? For you, it's writing. Like that's where your ideals are kind of going. For others,
it was dance for a long time.
Oh, that's true. For others, like in your group, it might be words or actions. There might be some way to kind of manifest, and that's the creator. Like there is a manifestation piece to this of taking internal to external, of shaping the world around you and the people around you and shaping yourself. So there's a constant back and forth. I think we're going to pull one from my deck here. I'm going to laugh if it's another chakra that we've already pulled. Okay. Oh, yep. So we pulled the root chakra. This is the 3 of seeds. Tend the seeds that support the others. Tend the seeds that support the others.
It's interesting because within the broader context of all this consideration about communication, one of the goals of it is, you know, like with the shifting dunes or raising the child or, you know, helping the employee or whatever, all of this is hopefully to build good relationships and help people become better people, that your interaction with them leaves them in a better place.
Well, this card is community. So it's a 3 of Pentacles in the tarot deck, and it really is about joining community, joining 3 or more people together to address a task. This would be barn raising. You know, this would be quilting. these are tasks that the community comes together. This would be planting the field. So, the whole community comes together and helps plant, and then goes back to their various lives. And then they all come together and help harvest. But this one is really about the sort of smaller, tender moments where you've already planted, right? A whole community came together and planted, but now you need help, like the vines, just tending them, and the old vine that needs all that love and attention, and how they light fires in the cold to keep the vines warm. Like, it's that kind of action. But it still takes, a grouping of at least 3, a small group, a small community to tend the seeds, and in this case that support the others. So it's also about where things are planted and how in like a garden things work together to help each other. Mm-hmm. So it's not just people working together, but it's people working together to create more life, more reward, more harvest that works together. So it's about investing back into the soil and creating new generativity from that.
Yeah. Oh, this is a beautiful reading. It's so thematically clean.
Mm-hmm. Very concise.
Very specific.
Because we returned to the root chakra, which came up in the first one. So we're back with the earth. So it's very grounded. Even though we're talking about a place where I think we often become ungrounded, like when we get into shouting matches or where emotions rise high, they sort of eliminate the root chakra. So we do feel like that balloon up in the air, lost, right? Just being blown about and, shouting into the void. And, you imagine those kind of dramatic moments where tensions are high and words are just being slung at each other. Mm-hmm. But here it's being like, no, return to the soil. Remember that you're a community and you're working together, and you have to work together in order to create the future, in order to have something for the future. It has to be done together. So this is like just as much as you raise up, right, your ideas, you also have to be grounded in that process. And you don't have to stay up there forever, right? You can raise up your ideas and then come back down and recharge and interact with others and get new seeds to grow and then take those up. And it's that kind of cyclical idea of it, rather than just sort of always being aloft, always spouting ideas. Always, you have to return.
Staying rooted.
Yeah, you have
staying
to have
anchored.
That.
Like you can stick a post in the ground and not let your balloon drift off too far.
Mm-hmm. Or like a kite.
Like a kite. Yep, exactly like a kite.
Rise up, but still come back.
Be connected to something stable on the ground.
And that really helps when you are caught up in your metaphor, right? When you're caught up in your story, which I believe lives probably in the second chakra. I think that's where the root metaphors really live. And I think the reason that they become so powerful is that they overcome our actual root. Mm-hmm. They unground us.
Well, they're resonating with all that emotional metal.
Mm-hmm. And for me, water, deep waters, you can get lost. Even though there's a point, I was reading about this on exoplanets, like there's a point where water becomes solid again, but not ice.
Huh.
Yeah. Because
so,
they were saying on a true water planet. Yeah, on a true water planet where basically there's just water around a core. Mm-hmm. Like it becomes more and more dense until it becomes basically this other format. I forget what it was called, but it's another state.
Called pudding.
But no, it's fascinating. But yeah, even water has some solidness to it.
Could you imagine like taking a scoop of water and eating it? It's like, this is like pudding, but it's water. I feel so hydrated. It's like, oh my God. Because think about how much water would be in that spoonful. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That'd be condensed. It's interesting that we're coming around to the idea of collaboration, because the previous card was talking about taking action on what you are discussing. And this card reminds us that, again, we don't have to do big stuff by ourselves. If you are a writer, get beta readers. If you are a painter, get feedback. It's an opportunity to be supported with initial responses, but also just, having somebody to anchor with and not be taken away into your ideas until they don't have any resonance with anybody anymore, because you floated so high that nobody can even see your hot air balloon anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you used resonance. It's a very good word. We didn't really talk about that yet, but sound waves resonate with physical things. We have tuning forks. You hit one tuning fork, it resonates with another tuning fork, and they'll start to build on each other and support each other and create that back and forth. It's handbells. I love handbells. That's one of my instruments, and they resonate with each other, and because of the overtone series, which, if you're not familiar, when you have a fundamental note like a C, there's actually a lot of other notes sort of hidden in the top range of that. So it does octave and then fifth and then third, and it keeps going. And so a low note will actually have a large overtone that'll resonate with other bells in the choir. And so you get this sort of supportive thing where the overtones create more and more interactions with each other. And that's a good note, I think, that we can touch on, is that just like words have subtle meanings, notes have overtones. They have subtle characteristics that cause resonance, even unintentionally.
And words can do that with ideas and conversations
and
responses.
It's why certain chords feel different, is because of these subtle variations and interactions. And so I think this reminds us that we do have resonance with others. We have resonance with the earth, like the earth, rock, stone has frequencies that it vibrates at. And there's always motion, always vibrations happening, even in a piece of granite.
Do you happen to understand the difference between the theories for string theory, where one says that the strings are open and one says that they're closed loops? Do you understand what that difference is? You can say no. I'm just asking.
Very, 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 very not so much, but kind of. I've read Stephen Hawking's expanded history of everything, and he got into it, and I was like, okay, this is kind of making a little bit of sense, but the implications are beyond me as to why one would mean one thing versus another.
Right. Okay. I was just wondering why the math even says that there would be strings, let alone some of them being linear and some of them being little like rubber bands. I don't know why the math would say one or the other. I don't get it. I was just wondering.
No, that's not my thing. I'm actually reading a book on artificial intelligence, and I'm not sure how far I can go with the math. They're gonna start at the basics and sort of work their way up, and with machine learning. So I hate the word AI because we don't have AI. We're very, very far away from AI. Like artificial intelligence, beyond us, far beyond us. But there are things that we can get computers to do that are pretty cool. And one of them is machine learning. And machine learning has some very simple math. And then as you kind of go further, it gets more and more complicated until you get to stuff that, mathematicians are really the only ones that totally understand it. So I'm excited to read the book, but also kind of scared because I'm like, at a certain point, it's probably going to be to the point where I'm like, okay, I understand what you're saying. I don't really understand what's happening in the symbols here, but I believe you when you tell me that this has a meaning. I believe you, and I'm gonna take away the meaning. So that's with me in strings is there's multi dimensions, higher dimensions, in order to account for the forces in the world and the vibrations in the world. And particles are vibrations of strings, and that kind of it brings everything together and tries to explain, gravity with the weak force with the strong force, and everything kind of aligns. And yeah, for now at least, strings seem to be although there are others, but it seems to be the thing. I
think I read something recently that said that it implies that there are 11 dimensions. I'm like,
yeah,
well, that just seems superfluous.
it's like 11 or 27 are the two numbers I think that they went on. There's a joke in Star Trek about it. There's an episode where one of the crew members gets like a brain upgrade, and he spends all night working with Einstein on the theory of everything. And at one point, I think they said, yeah, that means that there would be 27 dimensions. And Einstein's like, that's just far too much.
It's just far too many.
And that's such an Einstein thing. You know, he was like, he hated quantum mechanics, even though we know that it's, we know that it's true. He just hated the idea of it. He was like, that's ridiculous. I don't like it. A brilliant man just being like, no. But I think there's, circling back, we got off on a sidetrack on math and things, but mathematicians are one of the biggest communities out there because they're constantly pushing up against each other and supporting each other and pushing each other and moving each other and affecting each other. And they write these missives in these equations back and forth, and it creates resonances and frequencies. And like, it's such a dynamic field where they're constantly sort of approximating something and getting closer and closer and closer. And it's a perfect, I think, example of the spiral that I talk about in my deck with the celestial kind of spiraling inward. We're closely, like we circle it, right? We circle the point, we circle the theory of everything, and we keep getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And the math makes more and more sense to the people that understand it. And there is a community to it. So there's a lot of communication, sometimes constant sassy
feedback. Yeah. Constant feedback, constant proof.
Yeah. Actually, I think the physicists get a little bit more sassy than the mathematicians do. What's funny to me is that physics has got to the point where you really have to like get a mathematician to be like, hey, I've got an idea. Can you come over here and help me?
Can you tell me why this will or won't work? Like,
it's so theoretical. It's so, derived equations at this point that, you're not smashing atoms together really. You're dealing with this high dimensional math.
Yeah. So I'm kind of eager to see how we end this concise reading. Shall I roll?
You shall.
Okay, let's see where we go. All right, deck number 1. Oh, great! You said the word sassy.
I did say the word sassy.
You summoned my sassy deck by saying the word sassy. Okay, so we're gonna go to deck number 1. Don't know what that's gonna be. It's 39. Wait, 39. Did we just have 39?
No, we had 32.
Okay, all right. Ooh, okay, 30, what? 39.
39.
Oh, this is episode 39.
This is episode 39. That's right.
That's why I remember hearing the word 39. Well, you were wanting second chakra.
Oh, no.
So... You asked for some,
I told you it was hiding there.
Okay. So imagine the word jealousy in your head. Okay. Now imagine the word lousy in all caps inside the word jealousy.
Okay.
All right. So jealousy, do better. Define their success. Examine their process. Frolic upon their shoulders. Jealousy, do better. Define their success. Examine their process, frolic upon their shoulders.
Okay. I mean, this falls particularly with the math that we were just talking about. That's exactly what they do. They build on each other. They stand on each other's shoulders, and they do it and continue to grow. And actually, for all the trouble that Nobel might have, the prize is actually pretty egalitarian. Like they look at who had similar ideas and they don't go, oh, this one was first, they get it. But if a lot of people had similar ideas at the same time and developed the theories at the same time, they reward all of them for being at the front of something. So I think that's kind of a great little capstone piece to this, that you have to be careful of what you view in others and take the jealousy, right? Take the, well, that should be mine part out and realize I can build on this.
Mm-hmm. This intersection is where third eye, water, blue, I see is affected by orange metal. I feel.
I like that we've got the third eye because there is sort of an intuition piece that you need for all of this, an inward, outward, exploratory sort of perspective to take. You can't be completely inwardly focused. You can't be completely outwardly focused. You have to really look at the interplay of those things, like to be really conscious, going back to the first card, to be really conscious of what you're doing with your words. You have to kind of understand where you are on the inside and how that's rolling to the outside. So yeah, we've brought in the second chakra, but we've also brought in the sixth chakra. So now we have that kind of back and forth. And if we missed the heart, we missed the crowns. We didn't have.
Well, but I was about to touch on that. We don't have any green per se. We don't have any literal heart per se, but in your card with the 3, you do end up having to connect with other people to make this stuff work. So there is an aspect of interconnectivity here.
Yes.
We didn't get the heart like bleeding on the table, but it was beating.
It's there. It's a part of this. So I think this is reminding you to be very, very introspective when you are in those positions of being able to make change. You have the power, right? The creator came up. You have it. It's yours. You can do it, and no one's telling you what to do or what not to do, right? That's the authority that comes next. There's no rules right now, right? You can do what you want to do. So what are you going to do?
Use your powers for good.
Yeah.
And don't let it be fueled by jealousy and bitterness.
Mm-hmm. And remember that you're part of the community, that you're one with others, that your seeds depend upon them and your harvest depends upon them. Like what you grow, you have to be able to send out into the world, and you have to receive things in exchange.
Yeah, and something else to consider, the very nature of I say implies connection, because it means if you're going to express something, you are presuming that there will be someone to take in what you've put out. So with all this aqua today, all this voice, all this I say, all this air, this is communal. That's what community is. That's what communication is. Mm-hmm. So recognizing that even if you get very lofty, and congratulations if you do, remember that there's somebody, on the ground watching you fly.
I just have to point out all the words that mean like people together come from bread.
Mm-hmm. Communion.
Yeah, companion, literally.
Companion.
Bread together.
Yeah, bread together bread.
Company. So it's that very idea of sort of sitting around the table together.
Mm-hmm. Sharing bread, sharing ideas.
Yeah.
Chatting, doing the stuff to get the thing.
And, history being told at the side of a kettle, brewing the soup. I forget what it was called. There was a continual stew. Like they would just keep the pot warm and keep adding things to it.
Keep dropping stuff in it, yeah.
And it would, evolve and change over time, and then people would gather around it, and that would be the source of sustenance. So yeah, I think that's a great image to end on today, is that communal pot around which everyone sits at some point during the day and shares and talks and tends and helps and hurts and influences and changes and shapes. And it's sort of that flow of air among a group of people, among your group of people. And how are you contributing to that? How are you working on that?
Yeah. How are you blowing lightly on somebody else's fire sometimes?
We have a members only, so you can actually get longer episodes where we talk about how the reading affected us personally, what we took away from it for our lives, and kind of how we are processing it, and you can get that at Patreon. We have on YouTube, Show Your Deck is our YouTube channel where you can watch the podcast with the cards. We actually put the cards up on the screen so you can see all the pretty colors and wonderful designs that we have made together over many, many years of trial and error. I think, how many times did we do that one deck, the haiku deck? I think we had like four designs.
4 iterations of that.
And then we finally stumbled on the right one.
Yeah, by accident.
Our books and our decks are available at showyourdeck.com. Showyourdeck.com. You can get our books and our decks. My book is available on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. Jack's book is available directly through his website. And you'll get a nice signed, pretty picture. And then our cards are distributed by a distributor. So you can get them directly from the distributor. And Jack, where can we find you?
I am at 49 Haiku. So the number 4, the number 9, HAIKU on the intrawebs that would be 49haiku.com. And on Instagram, it is at 49 Haiku.
I am Dean Sage Media. Find me if you dare. If you want to look at our Instagram, it's at your deck. And we will say goodbye for now.